What happens when a CEO goes undercover to investigate falling warehouse morale only to freeze when he sees a worker break down? And here's the manager's cruel response. Patrick Teller was proud of the chain of 11 warehouses he'd built into a stable logistics company after buying the struggling business 8 years ago. The numbers looked fine. Profits were steady. But recently, turnover had spiked at the South Point facility, the company's third largest warehouse, and customer complaints about late shipments were creeping up. "I'm telling you, I don't buy the reports," Patrick told his assistant, leaning back in his office chair. "The district manager keeps saying it's just a staffing issue, people not showing up. But that doesn't explain the attitude problems in the exit interviews." He paused, rubbing his chin. "I want to see it myself." No filters. His team helped him craft a new identity: Paul Tucker, a quiet middle-aged man looking for a steady job after his small business folded. They gave him steel toe boots, a faded hoodie, and a clean-shaven face. No one at South Point had ever met him. He'd only visited the location once, years ago, and turnover in the warehouse was high enough that his face wasn't known. He showed up on a cold Monday morning, clutching a paper coffee cup, blending in with the dozen new hires at orientation. The warehouse manager, Derek, gave a brief, rushed welcome speech. "Don't expect hand-holding," Derek barked, pacing in front of the group. "We're short-handed because people quit when they realize this is actual work. If you're soft, leave now." Patrick raised an eyebrow, noted. He was paired with a senior warehouse worker named Santiago, a lean man with tired eyes and a quiet patience. Santiago didn't talk much, but he showed Patrick the ropes: scanning packages, stacking boxes, navigating the maze of shelves. "Been here long?" Patrick asked as they loaded a pallet. "5 years, Santiago said. "Used to be better, but lately it's just different." "How so?" Before Santiago could answer, Derek's voice echoed through the warehouse. "Move it, people, we're not running a daycare." Patrick flinched at the tone. Later that day, he watched Derek berate a younger worker for mislabeling a bin loud enough for half the warehouse to hear. "Do you even read English, or do I need to draw pictures for you?" Derek snapped. The worker's face flushed. No one said a word. Patrick clenched his jaw. He felt his stomach tighten. He wanted to say something, but he wasn't the CEO right now. He was Paul, the new guy. The next day, Patrick was assigned to a different team. That's when he met Shayla Brooks. Shayla was in her early 20s, with a nervous energy and oversized gloves. She kept her head down, worked fast, and didn't complain even when her scanner glitched or her cart jammed. By noon, they were behind on their quota. "Sorry," Shayla mumbled, rushing to fix a stack of boxes. "I'm trying, just didn't sleep much." Patrick helped her adjust a crate. "It's all right. We'll catch up." She gave a small nod, grateful. An hour later, it happened. Shayla was lifting a large box onto the conveyor when it slipped, crashing to the floor with a loud thud. The contents scattered. She froze, then dropped to her knees to clean it up. Derek stormed over from across the floor. "You serious right now?" he barked. "You can't even hold a box. What's next? Breathing too hard." Shayla kept her eyes down, hands trembling as she stacked the items back into the box. Patrick stepped forward instinctively. "It was just a slip," he said. "I saw it, not her fault." Derek shot him a look. "You don't speak for me, rookie. Stay in your lane." Then he turned back to Shayla. "If you can't handle this job, you can clock out now and cry at home." That's when Patrick saw a tear fall from Shayla's face onto the floor. She didn't speak, just kept stacking. Patrick's hands tightened into fists at his sides. He froze, not because he didn't know what to say, but because he knew if he said it as Paul, it wouldn't change anything. He watched her shoulders shake as she stood up and pushed the cart away, still silent. And he made a decision. He was done watching. Tomorrow he'd come back, but not as Paul. Patrick returned to South Point the next morning before sunrise. But this time, he didn't wear the faded hoodie or steel toe boots. He wore a navy suit, the same kind he hadn't needed in years, and walked in through the front office instead of the loading dock. No fake name, no badge scan. The receptionist, young, startled, and clearly not used to executives dropping by, stood up so fast her chair nearly tipped. "I need Derek." "Now," Patrick said, voice low and even. She didn't ask questions. Just picked up the phone. Less than 2 minutes later, Derek appeared in the hallway, his walk slower than usual. He wore a South Point fleece jacket and carried a clipboard, but his eyes weren't focused on it. He didn't recognize Patrick at first, then his brow twitched. "Mr. Teller, I wasn't aware you were visiting today." "I know," Patrick said. "That was the point." Derek opened his mouth, but Patrick raised a hand. "Office, now." They walked in silence down the narrow hallway. Derek's office was cluttered, papers stacked, whiteboard half erased, a cold cup of coffee on the desk. He motioned to a chair. "I'll stand," Patrick said. "You can sit." Derek hesitated, then sat. He looked smaller now, still tall, still broad-shouldered, but his usual edge was gone. Caution replaced confidence. Patrick didn't waste time. "I spent the last 2 days working on your floor." Derek blinked. His eyes darted to the door, then back. As a new hire, watching, listening, Derek shifted. I wasn't told. You weren't supposed to be. I've read your reports. Heard your excuses, but none of them match what I saw." "I can explain." "No," Patrick cut in. "You can listen." He took a breath. "You berate employees in front of others. You humiliate them for mistakes. You run this warehouse like a boot camp, but without the discipline or respect. And yesterday you made a young woman cry over a dropped box." Derek's mouth tightened. "She was behind quota again. It's not personal. We're under pressure. If I don't push, you're not pushing. You're breaking people." There was a long pause. Patrick stepped closer. "Are you aware of our employee assistance program?" Derek frowned. "I've heard of it. Shayla Brooks used it last month. She's caring for her mother who's recovering from spinal surgery. She picks up extra shifts to afford home care. She sleeps 3 hours a night." "And you told her to cry at home." Derek's face went blank. Patrick's tone sharpened. "You didn't ask why she was tired. You didn't notice her shaking hands. You saw a number and decided she was weak." He paused, letting that settle. "You're done here." Derek stood up. "Wait, no second chances. Pack your things. HR will process your exit paperwork this afternoon." Derek's jaw twitched as if he wanted to argue, but the weight in Patrick's voice made it clear there was nothing to salvage. Patrick stepped aside. Derek walked out without a word. By noon, the warehouse buzz felt different. Patrick gathered the team leads in the break room. No official announcement, just enough of a shift in tone that people noticed. Santiago stood near the back, arms crossed. Shayla wasn't there. He'd made sure she had the day off with pay. "I've seen what this place looks like from the floor," Patrick said, standing at the front. "And it's not what I built this company for." The room fell quiet. People aren't numbers. And running a warehouse doesn't mean treating people like they're lucky to be yelled at. A man near the vending machine, Logan, a shift lead, nodded slowly, but didn't speak. Patrick looked around. "Some of you have been holding this place together despite the pressure. You've been doing more with less, and you've been ignored." He paused. "That changes now." An older woman near the coffee pot, Tanya, who managed inventory flow, spoke up. "He's been like that since last year, after Mike left. We tried to raise it to district, but nothing happened." Patrick's eyes narrowed. "What happened to Mike?" "Transferred to Albany. Said he couldn't take the way things were going." Patrick nodded once. "I'll be speaking with him." Someone else, Jordan, a forklift operator, leaned forward. "Are we actually getting more people, or is this just talk?" "You need reinforcements. You'll get them, but first I need to know what you've been dealing with. Real numbers, real stories, no filtered reports." A few exchanged glances. "Start with this. Who hasn't taken a full break in the last week?" Patrick asked. Half the hands went up. "That's over," Patrick said. "Effective immediately, every employee gets their scheduled breaks and nobody gets penalized for taking them." He turned to Logan. "You're acting manager for now. I'll stay involved until we find someone permanent. You'll get the support you need." Logan's eyes widened. "Me, you know the floor, your people trust you, and you don't talk down to them." Patrick turned back to the others. If you've got problems, I want to hear them, not in surveys, not in anonymous boxes. Come find me, I'll be here all week. After the meeting, Patrick walked the floor again, but this time as himself. Workers gave him cautious glances, unsure how to respond. He didn't interrupt, just observed. In the packing zone, he saw a young man struggling with a jammed printer. Before Patrick could step in, Tanya appeared beside him, fixed the issue in under 10 seconds, clapped him on the shoulder and moved on. He made a mental note: promote her to training coordinator. Outside, during shift change, Santiago approached him by the loading dock. You really fired him? Patrick nodded. Santiago looked out toward the parking lot, didn't think anyone upstairs was listening. I wasn't. That's the problem. Santiago studied him for a moment, then said, she'll be all right, you know, Shayla. She just needs someone to believe in her. Patrick didn't answer right away. I'll make sure she knows she's not alone. He stayed until the evening shift began. Watched as Logan took charge, nervous but steady. Saw employees start to breathe a little easier. The fear didn't vanish, not yet, but it loosened. That night, back in his hotel room, Patrick opened his laptop and drafted a message to every warehouse manager in the company. No fluff. Just a single directive: treat your people like they matter, because they do. I'll be visiting. No schedules, no warnings. He hit send, then picked up his phone. Get me Mike from Albany. We're going to talk about what happened after he left South Point. Patrick knew this wasn't just about one warehouse. It was about a culture that had slipped while he was looking the other way, and he wasn't planning to look away again. Patrick arrived at the warehouse just after 6 the next morning, wearing a plain gray zip-up and jeans. No suit, no announcement. He stepped through the side door that led into the operations wing, still quiet except for the low mechanical hum of the conveyor systems warming up. The first person he passed was Tanya, clipboard in hand and already walking the floor. You're early, she said, not surprised. I figured I'd catch the atmosphere before things pick up. She nodded, then paused. You'll want to keep an eye on how Logan handles shift prep. He's trying, but the gaps are still showing. What kind of gaps? Coordination. Timing's off between pick and pack. He's got good instincts, but he's used to taking orders, not giving them. Patrick glanced out toward the staging section. Crates were still half-wrapped and 2 pallet jacks sat idle. I'll walk with him today. Tanya didn't respond right away. Then she said, you should also talk to Darnell. He's been covering 2 roles since last month. Where is he? Loading dock. Bay 3. Patrick found Darnell crouched beside a scale that was flickering again. His hands were stained with grease and the front of his vest had a tear near the zipper. He looked up when Patrick approached, blinking against the overhead light. Morning, Patrick said. Hey, boss. You always do your own maintenance. Darnell stood slowly. Only when it's faster than waiting 3 days for someone from the tech team. Patrick looked down at the scale. The wiring near the base was wrapped in electrical tape. You've been doing this long enough to know what breaks and what's worth fixing. What's not worth fixing? Darnell hesitated. The schedule, people are burning out. We're short 4 loaders and the temps we get don't last more than 2 shifts. So yeah, stuff gets left behind. Patrick didn't ask for a report. He could see it in the way Darnell's shoulders slumped when he thought no one was looking. I'll get you backup, Patrick said, but I want you off those repairs. That's not your job. Darnell gave a small nod, then walked off to wave in a freight truck that had just backed in. Patrick watched for a moment, then stepped into the ops office where Logan was reviewing the digital manifests on a wall mount tablet. You're double booked on Bay 5, Patrick said. Logan turned, startled, then looked at the screen. Damn, you're right. I didn't catch the inbound shift. You're trying to run everything yourself. I'm used to just fixing what Derek missed. Now I've got people asking me for direction, and I don't want to give the wrong one. Patrick leaned against the desk. Leading isn't about knowing everything. It's about asking the right people before it becomes a problem. Start looping Tanya into shift prep. She already sees things before they break. Logan nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. And delegate the floor checks. You don't need to walk every aisle every hour. I thought that was what Derek expected. I'm not Derek. Patrick left him with that and headed toward the pick zone where the early crew had started. As he passed the break room, he caught a glimpse of Shayla sitting alone at the far table, hands wrapped around a paper cup. He hesitated, then walked in. Mind if I sit? She looked up, eyes tired but clearer than the last time he'd seen her. You're the CEO, right? I am, she nodded slowly. I figured. Patrick sat across from her. I want to apologize, he said. Not just for what happened, but for letting it happen without stepping in. She didn't look away. I wasn't going to cry, I was so damn tired. And when he said that stuff, it was like I wasn't even real to him. You are, Patrick said, and you never should have been treated like that. She looked down at her hands. I didn't think anyone would say anything. Most people just keep their heads down. Patrick leaned forward slightly. What would make this place better for you? I don't need favors, she said. Just a chance to breathe, maybe someone to cover when I fall behind instead of watching me drown, he nodded. We can do that. She stood up, cup still in hand. I'm not quitting, just so you know. I didn't think you were. Later that morning, Patrick met with HR in a quiet corner office off-site. He requested full personnel files for South Point's last 30 departures going back 4 months. Patterns emerged fast, most left within 60 days. Exit forms were vague: workload, environment, seeking different opportunity, but the notes told the real story. Words like demeaning, ignored, and afraid to speak up appeared too often. He picked up the phone. I want a regional HR audit, not just paperwork. I want interviews, unfiltered, and I want it quietly. By afternoon, a recruiter arrived from headquarters short notice, but Patrick didn't care. He met her in the front office and walked her through the floor, pointing out the areas where reinforcements were needed. Not just bodies skilled, trained workers who could stay. People who wouldn't be thrown in with no context and told to sink or swim. You'll have to offer more than minimum, he told her, and add an incentive to stay 60 days. She took notes, eyes scanning the floor as a forklift beeped nearby. What about leadership? She asked. I'm building that from within, Patrick said. No more drop-in managers who don't know the crew. That evening, as the second shift clocked in, he gathered the team leads again. But this time, he didn't speak first. I want to hear from you, he said. What's the thing that's slowing you down the most? A tall man named Eric cleared his throat. Staging's always backed up. We finish a pull, then sit on it because the dock's jammed. Tanya added, that's because we've got no visibility between zones. Everyone's working blind. Patrick nodded. Solutions? Shared board, Logan said. Real-time updates, even just a whiteboard logged every half hour would help. Patrick turned to Tanya. Can you own that? She nodded, already thinking through the setup. Another hand went up. It belonged to a woman named Renee, part of the repack team. Are we going to rotate people out of the same zones? Some of us have been stuck in the same aisle for weeks. It's killing our backs. Patrick hadn't heard that yet. He looked to Logan. That true? Yeah, Derek didn't like people moving around. That changes now, Patrick said. No one's glued to one zone. You rotate, you recover. As the meeting wrapped, Patrick walked back to the loading dock where Darnell was finishing a manifest. You holding up? He asked. I'm all right, just glad someone's finally listening. Patrick leaned against the wall. I'm not going to fix this place overnight, but I'll be here, until it's running the way it should. Darnell gave a short nod, then walked off to flag the next truck. Patrick stayed behind, watching the rhythm of the floor. It still wasn't smooth. Shipments staggered, voices raised. But there was motion where before there'd been tension. Corrections where there'd been fear. He turned toward the stairs and headed up to the observation deck. From there, you could see the whole operation: rows of racks, carts weaving, boxes sliding down conveyors. For the first time in days, it didn't look chaotic. It looked possible. He pulled out his phone and opened the camera. He didn't take a picture, just looked through the lens. Then closed it. Tomorrow, he'd meet with the Albany manager. And after that, the next warehouse on his list. But tonight, South Point was still his, and he wasn't finished yet. By Friday morning, the warehouse floor at South Point felt different, not fixed, not smooth, but different. The air wasn't heavy with silence anymore. People spoke more freely, even if only in short exchanges. The tension that had once clung to the corners of the picking area and the loading dock had begun to loosen its grip. Patrick arrived before the first shift clocked in. He walked past the side entrance, through the lot where 3 delivery trucks were already lined up. The rain had left streaks on the pavement, and the wind carried the sharp scent of cardboard and diesel. He noticed Shayla, hood up, standing near the back wall with a clipboard. She was checking inventory tags, one foot propped on a pallet. "You're early," he said as he approached. "I needed some quiet to catch up," she replied without looking up. "And I wanted to finish without rushing. You comfortable with that zone now? I figured out workarounds for the scanner lag. Santiago showed me how to resync it manually." Patrick nodded once. "Has anyone told you you're doing a solid job?" She turned, then shrugged. "Not really, but I'm not here for compliments." "You should be," he said, "but I get it." She gave a faint nod and adjusted her grip on the clipboard. "You said you'd stay until things changed." "Does that mean you're leaving soon?" "Not yet, but I want to talk about what happens after I do." "I'm listening." "I'm putting together a staff committee, 2 people from each shift, 1 from each department. They'll meet biweekly with the new site manager. Direct line." "No filters?" Shayla blinked. "And you want me on it?" "I do," she hesitated. "I'm not the loudest voice. But when you speak, people listen. That's more valuable than volume." She looked down at her boots, then back at him. "Okay." Patrick walked the floor for the next hour, observing without stepping in. Logan was at the far end near receiving, talking through a delayed shipment with 2 new hires. He was still stiff in his delivery, but he paused when they asked questions. That was progress. Tanya was leading a short walkthrough near the midway point, pointing toward locations on a new layout map she'd created by hand. In the break room, Patrick found Darnell eating yogurt at a corner table, his safety vest draped over the back of a chair. He glanced up as Patrick entered. "Bay 3's running smooth this morning," Darnell said. "Good to hear. You still doing double coverage? Yesterday was the last time. We got 2 new loaders starting Monday. I trained one myself. You trust him. He's green, but he listens." Patrick pulled a chair and sat down. "I've got a question. Shoot. You've been here long enough to know the warehouse inside out. Why didn't you ever go for a lead role?" Darnell wiped his hands on a napkin. "I did. Twice. Derek said I didn't have presence, told me I should focus on being consistent. You think it was because you didn't speak up?" "No, I think it was because I wasn't the kind of person he saw himself in." Patrick didn't respond right away. Then he said, "That's going to change. I'm putting you in charge of dock operations, officially, with pay bump and title." Darnell leaned back slowly. "And if I say no, then you keep doing what you're doing. But I think you're already doing the job, just without recognition." After a beat, Darnell nodded. "All right. I'm in." Patrick left him there and met with the incoming district HR liaison in the front office. Her name was Claire, and she had a folder under one arm and a tired look in her eyes. "I've got the audit summary," she said as they sat across from each other. "Some of it's what we expected. But there's more." "Go on." 3 former employees filed informal complaints about Derek's conduct. Nothing escalated, probably because they didn't think anything would come of it. One of them described being told she had an attitude when she asked for a break after a family emergency. That's borderline retaliation. Names. Claire opened the folder and slid over a sheet. One of them reapplied last month. She didn't get called in. Her application was marked "Do Not Pursue." Patrick scanned the paper. "Who made that call?" "Derek." Patrick leaned back. "Reopen her file." "I want her brought in next week. If she's still interested, she gets priority." Claire nodded. "Understood. And I want an internal review of every DNP tag Derek issued in the last 6 months. If there's a pattern, it needs to be addressed." Claire jotted it down, then paused. "One more thing. I pulled his email archive. He made comments about hiring the right type in reference to several job postings. It's coded language, but it's there. Patrick's jaw tightened. Document it, send it to legal. He stood up. We don't bury things here. Not anymore. By the afternoon shift, the energy on the floor had shifted again. 2 new workers shadowed Tanya in repack, and Logan had passed off scheduling duties to a younger lead named Mira, who was already smoothing out overlap issues with the picking team. A whiteboard had been mounted on the wall near the main aisle, listing live updates on staging delays and zone coverage. Before he left for the day, Patrick stepped into the small conference room where Shayla was reviewing the first committee agenda with Santiago and Mira. He didn't interrupt. Just watched as Shayla explained how shift feedback would be collected short forms, anonymous when needed, reviewed weekly. Santiago nodded, and Mira asked if they could include cross-department rotations as a standing item. Patrick smiled to himself, then quietly stepped out. That evening, he called Mike, the former South Point manager who had transferred to Albany. "Appreciate you picking up," Patrick said when the line connected. "Took me a second to believe it was really you. I wanted to ask why you left South Point the way you did." There was a long pause. "Because I warned District about Derek 3 times. Nothing changed, and after a while I stopped believing anyone above me cared." "You were right to leave," Patrick said. "But I'm sorry you had to. Is it better now? It's getting there." "Well," Mike said, "if you ever need someone who already knows the layout." Patrick didn't let him finish. "I was hoping you'd say that." He hung up and looked out the hotel window. The sun had dipped behind the line of low industrial buildings, casting the sky in soft orange. He thought about the first day, about Shayla kneeling on the floor, Santiago staying quiet, Darnell fixing things no one noticed. He had walked into that warehouse thinking he'd need to correct a few systems. He left knowing he had to rebuild trust. The next week, South Point reopened its hiring pipeline with new standards, new screening, and a message posted on every application page: "We don't just hire people. We listen to them." By the end of the month, 2 other warehouses in the region had adopted the committee model. Exit interviews were redesigned, anonymous reporting lines made confidential and direct. Patrick kept visiting, never announced, never with fanfare. But when he stepped onto the warehouse floors now, people didn't look away, they nodded. They spoke, and he listened. He always listened.